Welcome to Navajo Tea Time, everybody. Adrian here.
Kelsey here, and it's
And
this month we're kind of changing up our schedule. We're going to try and post 2 times a week.
yeah, two times for the month of May. So this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about Mother's Day in preparation for this coming holiday. So let's begin. Okay, so in regard to tea topics, maybe we should try to, open up like that. What are some tea topics related to motherhood on the res? Like something that I think a lot of people don't understand about like native mothers or indigenous motherhood is we kind of do things a little differently. At least for like for me, I think a lot of people who are not native or not Navajo, they might not understand why we do certain things. Like for example, um, so when I was living in Flagstaff during the winter, there were these big snowstorms, and I would take my kids out and roll them in the snow. And the neighbors who were living there in the family housing at NAU, they would look at me like, "What are you doing? Like, what the heck is going on?" So, yeah, I think sometimes people are like, those natives are crazy. But another thing too is my son Nabahi, he pretty much spent almost the first year of his life in a cradle board. So I would carry him around in cradle board everywhere. And I think people were just kind of surprised to see this baby strapped in, with like leather all on him. And, he slept good, he loved it. But I think to people who are not native, they might kind of look at that and wonder why we
Yeah,
torture children the way we do.
I did kind of see like some posts of like families putting their babies in the snow for the first time, and then comments underneath like, "Oh no, you're abusing your child. That child's gonna get sick. They're gonna die from whatever sickness kids get from being cold." But it was, I don't know. It it seems kind of funny that way sometimes. And it comes up a lot during too with like when people decide to pierce their child's or their baby's ears, and
Hmm.
people get in really big heated discussions about it. And I know my
Hmm.
mom pierced my ears when I was a baby. She pierced my sister's ears when she was a baby. And I pierced my daughter's ears. Not when she was a baby, but that's just because I kept forgetting to grab her birth certificate to take to flag with me when we went to Flagstaff. But, you know, I don't see it as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. They're like, "Oh no, that's body modification. What if the child hates earrings?" Like, well, then they don't have to put them in. You can just take them out. It it's the tiniest hole in a person's ear, but like it's always been a thing for my family, and I didn't think it was such a big hot topic. And then I started seeing posts on like mother sites and mother apps about like piercing their child's ear.
Yeah, I hear a lot about that in like the realms of like feminist forums, and women like to talk about how children don't have consent. Therefore, what right do you have to modify their body in any way without their consent? But I know for some families it's just normal. And when my daughter was going to Puente de Hojon, she had a classmate that she was in kindergarten, and she had piercings in her ear, and they weren't metal. They were like her family put these like um, they put these earrings on her, and it was like I don't know if it was twine or something, but she had these turquoise earrings, and they were permanent. They never fell off or came off or anything, and I thought that was kind of cool. So I don't know. Every family has their way, yeah. But I have a question for you.
Okay.
What are, or what can you name one thing that maybe like your mother, what are some things that maybe, or one thing that maybe your mother did as a parent that you think that might be unconventional?
Unconventional?
Mhm.
It's hard to say because, like, when you grow up in an environment, you don't know
Mhm.
something's off or
Mhm.
different.
Mhm.
But I think in terms of like music and the music we watch, or not music we watch, the movies we've watched and the music we've listened to, and the video games or stuff that we played, we had a lot of freedom in what we wanted, what we were interested in, and
Mhm.
like we were watching, I guess, PG-13 movies, maybe even R-rated movies. Um,
Mhm.
almost our entire lives, and my mom didn't know it was a problem until she was talking with a coworker of hers, like, oh yeah, my kids, they love watching The Mummy and this and that. And like, I was in 5th grade, so I wasn't even 13 yet. Like, that's PG-13. You let your kids watch that grown-up movie. And so we had a lot of freedom in, like, I guess the entertainment. This is my first child talking about Mother's Day, Morticia. um, but yeah, so we had like a lot of freedom that way. And I think one thing I really appreciate about my mom and the way she raised us is she always taught us to be extremely accepting of other people, and just if they're different, they're different. That's fine, you know. And yes, that's one thing I was super grateful about the way she taught us, is just to be accepting of other people and how different other people are raised and their different beliefs and how they act.
For me, my mom, she used to whip us with my Che's belt. So my Che passed away when I was probably 4 years old, and she still had his leather belt. And so she saved it and she wrapped the handles with tape, with duct tape, so she could get a good grip. And she would whip us with that. And I know nowadays that would not be cool, but she was like, this is what I was disciplined with, so this is what I'm going to discipline you guys with. And we're like, yikes.
I think that's another really big topic, like disciplining your children,
Mhm.
and like even spanking kids. People scream abuse, and then like, people are like, just because you were abused doesn't mean you need to abuse your kids
Mhm.
and everything. But I don't know. Like with my daughter Frankie, um, spanking doesn't work on her.
Mhm.
And like when she was 2, I'm like, Frankie, you better like I was trying to get her in her pajamas or something, doing something in the bedroom. Like, Frankie, you gonna listen to me? I'm gonna spank you. Like I never spank her hard, but like she knows it's gonna be like a swat. And then she just looked at me. She put her hand up and she smacked her own leg really hard. And she's like, "What now, Alma?" So, strong, independent daughters. You want one. So we have to
It's
figure out
funny.
different ways, because we know spanking, it has no effect on her to listening, and it's really hard to try and figure out how to get her to do what we want without bribing her with candy or other stuff. So like we do a lot of positive reinforcement, obviously, but like when she's being bad, how do we stop it? And so it's really
Yeah.
hard for us. Like some, like my siblings or my mom are like, why don't you just spank her? I'm like, because it doesn't work. Like I always say, she feels pain when it's convenient for her. Like she's like, oh, I'm in pain when it benefits her. But if being in pain doesn't benefit her, then she's like, I don't feel anything. But
Funny. What about what's the most interesting thing you've learned as a mother?
the most interesting thing I learned as a mother, um, trying to think, cause I don't know. I guess being native, when you're the oldest daughter, you kind of end up raising your younger siblings, especially when there's such a big age gap with me and my siblings. Like my
Mm-hmm.
sister is 9 years younger than me, so I
Mm-hmm.
kind of mothered her when she was younger. But I think like the personalities of like you see a personality in the baby so soon.
Yeah.
Like with my
Mm-hmm.
daughter, we called her the Empress of Destruction because she'd find something and it was destroyed. She destroyed her little food table. You know, the one that's supposed to be nice and sturdy for babies not to break? She just
Mm-hmm.
needed that little tabletop apart. And I was like, okay. um, but like just the personality that she was born with, like it was really surprising to see how strong that comes up and out of them.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I didn't know how intelligent children and babies were, and you can see it immediately. You know, you learn that they're unique and they have this personality unlike anyone else. And I was actually surprised by that because I thought they were just kind of like, I don't know, other people's babies. They always seemed like they just like laid there. You know, like I don't know. But I met my son and my firstborn, and I was just like, whoa, like I could communicate with him even as a little child, you know, as a baby, and I could understand him, and like I could tell he was. It was almost like I could tell what he was thinking. You know what I mean? Like we had this weird telepathy, which I thought was really cool, and we still kind of are like that, and I think that's awesome.
I was gonna say, yeah, like with Frankie, like she's a toddler, but she knows what she wants to do that day. Like she has a plan, she has an idea, she has, I don't know, expectations of what her day is. And I feel like when I was younger, no one cared about what I wanted to do in a day. It was always the adults planning the day. And with Frankie, with the quarantine, we didn't do much. You know, we just stayed home. And I see now that like when I'm like, okay, Frankie, we're going to town. We have to go shopping. We have to do this and do that. She's like, my whole day's ruined. You ruined my whole day. Thank you very much. I'm just gonna throw a fit because you ruined my day. This isn't what I wanted to do today. And that's very much like me. Like I like having a plan a couple days ahead of time at the very least of knowing what I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be doing in a day. And I can tell like when someone's like, "Oh, hey, this last minute thing, let's do it," and I'm like, "Fine, just ruin my whole day because I have to move everything around for you," and I can see it in her, and it's kind of funny.
I love that.
Does your spiritual beliefs align with what your parents are?
Um, I think the thread that links us all together is I think we all have a lot of faith. You know, when it comes to faith and prayer, we we're praying people, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? Like we pray, we believe we're being heard. We have a lot of faith that things are gonna, you know, work themselves out. So I think in that way, we have a there are similarities in that way. Like when something big is coming or when something bad happens, you know, we call one another and we ask for prayer. And I always feel strongest when I know that my family is praying along with me. You know, whether it's for healing or whether it's for a path to clear or whether it's, you know, for something big like maybe an opportunity that I want to take advantage of or someone else, you know, is pursuing. I think that's one thing that we all have in common. But as far as like religious beliefs, they're different. So yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how we are with my mom's. With my
Mm-hmm.
mom right now, like growing up, my mom didn't have a specific, I guess, religious sect that she prescribed to, but she was always Christian. Um,
Yeah.
but when I got older, when I was in high school, she fully committed to the LDS church.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a bad organization. Like the people that are in our community who go to that church, we get along with them fine. They're like family, friends, and everything now. But I always feel a lot of the rules and regulations in a church,
Mm-hmm.
they don't sit well with me.
Mm-hmm.
Just some of the things, and I don't know. With me, I've always leaned more towards, I guess, the witchy side of beliefs and spiritualism. And it's kind of hard to admit that because I know in traditional Navajo, like I've always been told by my aunts and stuff that you don't do witchcraft, you don't do it this way because it's evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from just like experiencing life and other friends who are traditional, there's a specific, I guess the term witchcraft is very negative in Navajo.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the way I believe in the things I do feel more like herbal spiritualism. And, like, I think we've talked about it before. Where, like, me and you, we're both very tactile. Where, like, we feel an object and we like, if we get a good feeling from touching the object, we like it or we
Mm-hmm.
want to buy it, especially like in like
Mm-hmm.
Goodwill and antique stores. So I like to focus more on the spiritual feeling of things instead of like labeling it as witchcraft, because I know people in the community will have a negative, just an automatic negative connotation to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember like when I was in high school, I used to read a lot of books on Wicca and paganism, and I thought it was fascinating. You know what I mean? The history of it all is super fascinating, especially for like European cultures and a lot of the cultures from around the world that practice that. I think that's how people think about like Navajo tradition too. It's very it's very tied to the, you know, like your ecosystem, you know, it's very tied to the elements, and it's tied to all the deities that, you know, affect those elements, I guess. If you think about it like that, you know, I think a lot of people are kind of like, oh, that's kind of witchy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to me, it's not. You know, it's like, no, that's our way. You know, that's our way of knowing and understanding and communicating with and living, you know, in this world. But
Yeah, I
for
think,
some people, they don't. Yeah.
well, I think like with the modern term, anything technically not Christian and just a little bit more spiritually or more like magical is
Mm-hmm.
a form of witchcraft in like the
Yeah.
contemporary lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. It's too bad that, you know, I think there's a lot of fear tied to it, and I think it's a tool that the church sometimes uses to manipulate people into following their way only. So
Mm-hmm.
rather than thinking for themselves, they're thinking, you know, as the church sees fit. And so that's always kind of been my problem. That's why I don't go to church anymore. But I was raised in a church. So I try to have respect for it in the sense that a lot of the teachings that were handed down to my parents when they were young, it helped them raise us in a home that had a lot of structure. And I think for that I'm really grateful. But you know, it didn't have all of the answers to every problem either, you know. Like life will throw fastballs at you no matter what religion you are, what your faith is, you know. There's going to be curveballs thrown at you, and you have to weather those storms together and get through them. And that's what I learned about family. And I think that when I think about my mom, and you know, we're talking about Mother's Day, I think that's one thing that I can credit her with, you know, her endurance and her ability to I guess navigate the storms of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so my second question is, are you like your mom or are you not like your mom?
So when I was growing up, a lot of people said that I was a lot like my father. Like I would run into people too, like in high school, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're just like your dad," you know. And I never thought of myself like my mom, but as I'm getting older, I think I am becoming more like her because she is a very social person. She's like really happy. You know, she's not mean. She's not like grumpy, you know. She has a joyful heart and she protects that. She's also very strong in her faith, and she's really loving, you know, like she's really loving, but she's also, and you know, when it comes to her kids and her family, that's like number one. And I'm like that too. So I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm becoming more and more like her. And even things like having a sense of style and the way I present myself to the world, I think that's how she is too. Like my mom can put an outfit together. You know what I mean? And she's always been like that. And I used to think of her as so glamorous when I was a kid because, she took time to, dress herself up every day. She wore makeup, she did her hair, she would wear an outfit. And, I grew up on the res. And so I saw a lot of moms in like, t-shirts and basketball shorts. Like they don't even try. And my mom was never like that. Like she would go outside and work, work outside, work around the house. She knows how to tend to animals. She's really like, just like any strong res mom. But when it's time to clean up and go out, she can do that too. And so I think in that way, I'm like her. So it's interesting to see that happen because I never thought it would happen.
I think with me and my mom are kind of opposites, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess with a literary term, we foil each other in a way
Hmm.
to where, like, because she has ADD,
Mm-hmm.
meaning her mind is scattered all over the place all the time. She
Mm-hmm.
forgets appointments and dates and everything. So, me, I had to remember all the dates and all the times and all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And she's super outgoing, always, talking to people and getting along with people. And me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, sit
Mm-hmm.
there and listen to everybody. And one thing with her, she gets super emotional when watching videos, like watching movies. If the movie is really sad, me and my siblings, we would just like peer over the aisle to see if she was crying because she's so emotional at times. And I think growing up with the household, we kind of did, we as kids kind of learned to guard our emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
so she kept all the emotions for herself, is what we say. And yeah, so that's how I feel like with me and my mom, we're opposites, but we complement each other really well.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's nice. Yeah, I wasn't really close to my mom growing up at all. I know some girls, their mom is like their best friend, and I was never like that with my mom. But now I feel like we're getting so much closer now that I'm getting older and more mature. Because before, it seemed like we had nothing in common. Like I was kind of like a rowdy kid, like I was all about going to shows and just like hanging out with my friends and all the things I did. She just, it's like she didn't get it. She was just like, what are you doing? um and then when I started going to college, I started my career. I didn't tell her about any of it. I never shared with my family what I was doing or what I had accomplished. If something big happened, I didn't call home about it. I just kept it to myself because I felt like everyone was still seeing me as a teenager, like just this rowdy, lost person who has no direction in life. And I didn't want to be the one to have to change their minds or prove myself to anybody either. So I just let everyone believe what they wanted to believe. And I figured as long as I'm true to myself and I'm doing what I love and I'm I'm doing to please, myself and no one else, then I'm okay. And so I went like, dang, like about 10 years just keeping it quiet. And it's not been until this year I started sharing with my mom what I've been up to, like sharing videos with her, sharing the YouTube channel, letting her see my resume, and she's just like, whoa, you've been doing a lot, and I'm like, yeah. And, it's kind of sad because, like, I think I don't know, I see other people share with their families, and it seems like this wonderful thing. They have all this support, they have these parents that are cheerleaders and siblings that really respect them and care about them. And that just hasn't been my experience. So I'm glad things are changing. I feel like that trust has been established between us now. And I think just living through a pandemic, we're really starting to value each other's company more now than we ever did before. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like speaking about like actually being talked to as an adult instead of still like a child, like I didn't like talking to like my aunts and uncles for a little while because they still kind of talked at me and like, oh no, you have to do things this way, and I'm gonna give you all of this advice even though you didn't ask for any of it. But then just before the pandemic, I was talking with one of my aunts, like my mom's second youngest sister. So my mom has 9 sisters. So my mom's second youngest sister, and, and I was talking to her about like, my plans, the home site lease, everything with my business, and she was talking to me like an adult. Like she's like, "Oh, so this is your plan. Oh, that's how it is. That's really interesting." Instead of, "Oh, why don't you do it this way?" Or, "You can try this." Or you like she was listening to my plans and actually, I don't know, like talking with me instead of like, "Oh, you have a problem. Let me tell you ways to fix it." And so like, "No, this is my plan. This is how I'm trying to get things done." And she was understanding and empathetic about it, and it wasn't like, trying to jump in and give me advice on how to live my life. And she was just, it was nice to be listened to like an adult from adults who you've grown up with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a nice change.
It is nice. I know. I'm glad when that finally started happening for me. It was like the best thing in the world, because I was so used to just being talked down to or talked at, like you said, and I never liked that. So it's been really cool to be able to earn the respect of those who are older than me and have them treat me like I know what I'm doing. And I think like that really didn't start happening until like with my aunts. They didn't really start treating me like that until I had children. And so, I've been a mom now. Like I gave birth to my son 13 years ago. So they were watching me, how I parent and how my kids are. And they've said to me over the past 13 years, like, you're a really good mom. And that means a lot to me. That's a great compliment to have when someone looks at you and says, you're a great mom. To me, I'm just like, oh, thank God I'm doing something right. Because it's hard. And I think as moms, I think we're really hard on ourselves. We don't, at least for me, I don't feel like I'm winning at motherhood all the time. I'm doing my best, but I'm not walking around like I'm the best mom ever. Like I don't feel like that all the time. I always feel like I could be doing better. I could be doing more.
I feel like with motherhood or even just being a parent in general, you don't know
Mm-hmm.
what your efforts are going to reproduce until decades later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like you're trying to give your kid all of these advantages or um, helpful hints that you didn't have that you wish you had, but you have no idea how over helping might affect them or under helping, or like the psychology of
Mm-hmm.
children and how to raise children and how to teach children is constantly changing. And
Yeah.
like before it was like, oh no, don't pick up your crying child because you're going to turn them spoiled. But now there's research saying, oh no, hold your child. Loving your kid isn't going to ruin them. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's constantly changing, and it's really hard to figure out how to raise a kid because you're not going to know if you did anything good until, they don't hate you later on in life.
I know. The truth too is like the complicated thing is like if you have multiple children, one thing could work for one child and it won't work for the other. So you can't just have this like blanket way of doing things, you know what I mean? Because every kid is going to react differently and they're going to turn out differently. That's like one of the huge challenges, I think.
Yeah, that's what my mom used to say to me all the time because I felt like my older brother Charles had a lot more freedom in like hanging out with his friends, and he was a boy too, so he just automatically got more freedom and more love from the grandmas, If you're Navajo, the boys are the golden children no matter what they do. And and me, as like
Mhm.
oldest daughter, I had to stay home. I had to take care of the younger siblings. I had to help with dinner. I had to clean the house. It's like, I want to go out with my friends. Why can't I? You let Charles go out. And my mom's like, well, Charles is different because he's different than you, and you guys are different. I'm like, yeah, but he gets to go out with his friends. I don't know how that's different.
Happier because he gets to hang out with his friends. That's why he's
Right?
different.
But have you seen that? Like, when, I don't know if you have
Yeah,
any brothers where, like, it's Shiyaj, oh, it's my Yaj. You can't yell at my Yaj. And, like, the girls are just
yeah.
slaving away. But that's a whole episode
So
there.
I'm the oldest in my family, and I have two sisters and one brother. And my brother definitely had more freedom than any of us girls. And he did get away with a lot more than us girls. And I think that's why I don't think that's the best thing you can do. You know what I mean? You can't baby your son, and you have to hold him accountable for everything. You can't let certain things slide, because if you do that, you know, it you change the rules for certain people. Their perspective, is going to change too. And I guess their privilege can sometimes not be the best thing. So yeah, I don't think I like just seeing that. I'm pretty strict with my son. I don't baby him at all. I was like, there's no freaking way I'm gonna have a mama's boy, because that boy is gonna grow up and someone else is gonna have to deal with that. And I'm not gonna do that to another woman, Yeah. Like, I don't want to do that. Yeah. I don't know. I never liked mama's boys either. They're different. It always turned me off. Just like, ew.
I'm too mean for a mama's boy, you know what I mean? I'm
Hmm.
just too mean. I don't put up with
I mean,
stuff.
yeah. I mean, you want a man to respect and love his mom and treat her well, right? You don't want a man that expects his mother to fix all his problems or to do everything for him when he's a grown man. That's, to me, that's gross when I see that. I'm just like, ew, stop it. Yeah, so let's just say happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers who are fans of Navajo Tea Time. Thank you for everything you do. We're in the trenches with you.
Yeah.
So we hope you have a restful, happy holiday.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, the aunties who raised their nieces and nephews, the grandmas, the 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 fur mamas, with their fur babies. Sometimes having a child isn't always an option, and you got to respect other people wanting to
And all the
nurture other
stepmoms,
people. And the stepmoms. So happy Mother's
evil
Day to
stepmoms.
everyone. All right, this has been Navajo Tea Time. They're a little shorter now because we're trying to do more a month. So, see you guys later. Bye.
Yep, join us for the next episode. Bye.
Yeah.
Oh, 'cause we're dying the right